Parents with hidden cameras, what have you caught your babysitter doing? This happened at a preschool. All the kids were regressing in their movement ability and getting fat, so they set up spy equipment. It turns out one carer was doubling every baby's food portions and forcefully overfeeding them. I've been a pretty regular weekend nanny for an amazing family for 4 years now. They've gone through a couple different weekday nannies since I've been with them. There is only one monitor and it's in the child's room. The mom showed me on the camera why they had to fire one person. The child said, "Mom said I don't have to do that." And the nanny replied, "Well, it doesn't matter, Mom is a bitch." And then dragged the kid out of the room by his shirt. Super fired. Not on camera because this happened in the 90s, but my mom came home early one day because she had become suspicious of our nanny. My sister and I never slept well after a day with her. She found both my sister and I in bed in the middle of the day. It turned out my nanny had been drugging us with child medicine to make us sleep all day so she could sit and do nothing. What was your, "Thank God I looked at the contract," moment? I signed up for a gym membership and got scared when they charged me $250 instead of only the $90 for the month. I went home and couldn't sleep because I was so angry. The next day I called to see if I could cancel. Everyone I spoke to said it was impossible, or only if I moved to an area that didn't have the gym. I read the contract and found out you could cancel within the first 2 weeks, and I was only 3 days in. You bet I canceled so fast. The landlord agreed to let me move out a month early since he wanted to lease the apartment to someone else. We had to sign new paperwork to let me out of the original lease. I knew he was a convicted forger, so I made sure to read what I was signing. He had added the condition that if the new tenant didn't work out, that I would still have to pay rent even after moving out. He said, "Oh, I just added that to protect myself." Then he stole my deposit. I still need to take him to court. Screw you, John. What's the worst thing a person has said to you while on a date? After what I thought was a good date, we went for a couple of drinks. At the end of the night, she told me, "Wow, you really are a great guy. I just wish you were good looking. Thanks for the honesty, I guess. Goodbye, self-confidence." At a dance when I was a teenager, I sat down to rest after dancing for a long time. A slow song started and a couple girls came up. One of them introduced me to her friend and asked me to dance with her because nobody had asked her to dance yet. I felt bad for her and said, "Yes, everybody deserves to dance." She spent the whole time talking about how I'm garbage for sitting when there are girls like her who haven't been asked to dance, and kept ignoring my attempts to change the subject. I walked away. We had a fun night having a personal date, and then we pull up to her house for her birthday party, where I'm about to meet her family for the first time. She turns to me and says, "Oh, by the way, my parents don't like Mexicans." I am Mexican. Why even put someone in that situation? What do you want me to do with that information? She was like, "Just be yourself." I was like, "Yeah, obviously, I can't be anyone else." They were polite but very patronizing. Needless to say, that ended quick. What's going to be a problem 20 years from now that people are choosing to ignore? Water rights and supply where I live. Developers just keep building houses and apartments anywhere they can, and people keep moving here. There really isn't enough water, and I'm waiting to see what happens before I buy a house here. I love the desert. I love the heat and the beautiful landscape, but we simply do not have the infrastructure to sustain big cities and farms out there. It's not going to last, and it's not going to be pretty once the problems start. An obvious one, but artificial intelligence. Not being able to know what is real when it takes no expertise to create realistic fake video and audio of people, as well as replacing tons of people's jobs, not just menial tasks, but creative ones. Our spinal health. Be conscious of your posture. We are not young forever. Many of us with computer jobs live very lazy lifestyles. Seriously, do lower back exercises at the gym. Patience. What happened when a doctor accused you of faking it when you needed urgent care? My mother had a stroke at age 32. The doctors didn't diagnose it properly for over 24 hours because they were convinced her symptoms must have been related to drugs since she was in good health and so young. My dad tried to tell them that she has no history of drug use, but they didn't believe him. Now she's permanently disabled because of how long it took for her to receive proper treatment. My colleagues were convinced the girl was just faking a stomach ache. She was about 16 and it was exam season, so I understood their skepticism. I took her history myself and sent her for an emergency ultrasound of her abdomen. Ectopic pregnancy. It was ready to rupture at any moment. She came out of surgery fine, but I gave my coworkers a hard time after that. We need to be thorough. In another case, I overheard a doctor who dismissed a case of a little girl faking fatigue for attention. I went to double check. The poor girl was having a carpopedal spasm and was clearly not faking. Gave her calcium and sent her home with medication. I'm not trying to pretend I'm perfect, but in this job you need to be a little paranoid. People who lost their job because of a social media post, what happened? I watched a friend lose his job over a tweet. He said, "So getting a blowjob while delivering pizzas is pretty sweet," one night while he was working. The next morning he tweeted, "Screw you, Papa John's, I don't need you or your stupid job anyway." I worked customer support for a mobile game company. A customer complained that recent changes had made the game pay to win. It had, in truth, been a glitch with an update. I was honest and told them that, assuring them the team would be fixing it. Then the game profits skyrocketed. The team kept the glitch and put out a statement describing the change as an intentional one designed to improve the play experience. But there was my name, plastered all over the game forums, claiming the opposite. I worked for a company that provided support for several studios, but this game studio was our biggest customer. They approached my bosses, furious I jeopardized their cash cow, and demanded I be fired. I was promptly thrown under the bus. Waiters, what awful things have you overheard while working? Based on some things I overheard, and what she looked like, I assumed the customer was pregnant. I decided to congratulate her. To my horror, she said, "I am not pregnant." I felt horrible. I told my manager, who comped their meals while I hid in the back for the rest of their dinner. It turns out, she refused to let the manager comp her meal and left me a $20 tip with a note that said, "I was joking, I'm due in July." Had a guy confess to getting with his girlfriend's sister when I brought their drinks to them. It was an anniversary. I guess he thought it would be the least likely place for her to cause a scene. She caused a scene. I was serving a large table that looked like they were on a family vacation when I overheard a grandpa asking the children if they had fun. The kid responded with, "Screw you, Grandpa, I can't wait until you die." I almost dropped the plates in shock. What happened to you when you were young that you didn't understand until years later? I was 10, at the beach, and ended up with sunburn, as I am English and not used to the heat. My dad took me to the restroom where we shared a stall, and he helped me take my t-shirt off so that he could reapply lotion. This was pretty painful. I was screaming inside a locked stall, saying that it hurt, so was surprised when a burly guy forced open the door, looking quite annoyed at my dad, who explained what was happening. I grimaced through the pain and agreed as best as I could. Only years later that I realized that burly guy was a good guy, and he was trying to save me from a pretty awful situation. I guess it makes me happy that there are people out there that won't just turn a blind eye to these things. I found an ass in my dad's closet when I was 6. An ass. Looking back on it now, I assume it was probably a sex toy. I pulled it out of his closet and was sitting next to it on the couch when he got home from work. I just thought it was funny. What screams, "I'm insecure"? When people are unable to admit that they don't know something, especially when people are very opinionated on a subject where they either know nothing or regurgitate talking points they heard from other places. Constantly telling everyone what kind of person you are. "I'm strong and independent. I'm a nice guy." Bragging about being smart. If you were, you wouldn't have to tell us. Talking about how much money you make and buying things to flaunt your wealth. If buying a nice car makes you happy, then have fun, but there's more to life than earning money, and it doesn't determine your value as a person. We're not impressed. Always gossiping and talking badly about others. I knew some women who I used to think were good at observing people's flaws. Now I realize that they were a very insensitive, cruel, and insecure lot who couldn't handle it being dished out to them. What's the best way you've seen someone rebel against school rules? Me and my Spanish class loved our teacher and just wanted to play a joke on her. We told her that the whole class was going to skip the next day and she didn't believe us. We skipped, except for maybe 3 kids, and got ice cream instead. We showed up at the end of the period and brought her ice cream too, and she just shook her head. She was like a second mom to all of us. I went to a Catholic school that had a strict male hair policy. It couldn't touch the collar of your shirt, but I wanted long hair. The principal came in one day to talk to the class, and when she was leaving she called me out for my long hair. My response was to point to the cross hanging above the door and say Jesus had long hair. She didn't know what to say right away and seemed embarrassed, but then pulled me outside and yelled at me to get it cut. Don't mess with Catholic nuns. Just after the Virginia attack, they banned backpacks and bags at my school. Purses were okay though. One guy shows up to school with a purse, and they suspended him for 2 days. The next day, most of the guys had purses. They lifted the ban.